Rue21. The heck is a Rue? Why is it called Rue? Well, in this case, the Rue is referring to the French word for street, and 21 is just the age the brand aims to capture the spirit and style of. Rue also means in English to bitterly regret something. I don't know if they thought about that before they came up with the name, but to be fair, for a pretty decent amount of time, Rue21 was very successful. You could find them in outlets and malls all over America. But now, oh no. But before we get to that, we have to go back to 1970 with a company called Pennsylvania Fashions Incorporated. Yes, really, that's what they went with. A very, very, very not modern name at all. But regardless, Pennsylvania Fashion did see great success, although they operated stores under multiple different brand names. They didn't just use Pennsylvania Fashions, they pretty much used whatever made sense for the area. And throughout the 70s into the 80s, they grew quite quickly. Eventually, they were purchased by Cary Klein, who was the son of the original founder of Pennsylvania Fashions, and he would lead the company throughout the 90s and into the early 2000s, and then they went bankrupt. Yeah. Now, that was neat. What was going on? Why did they go bankrupt in the early 2000s? Well, for one thing, there was a bit of a culture shift about that time. It was the new millennium, and a lot of the brands that Pennsylvania Fashions was working with were just old school. They were seen as old mom-and-pop stores, not the sleek, modern 2000s style that was appealing to the youth of that time. This is when Cary came up with the Rue21 concept. Basically, in his mind, 21 was the age everyone wanted to be. You weren't too old to be, well, old, but not too young that you couldn't do all the fun things that 21 lets you do, like, drink, I guess. But I'll have you know, Cary, that 21's pretty overrated. As someone who's turning 35 in just a few days, I could tell you that 35 is the new 21. Anyway, after Klein sold a 50% stake to a Stamford, Connecticut-based investment firm, he was eventually able to pull the company back out of bankruptcy, but more importantly, completely revitalize it in the Rue21 format. These stores were much more modern, completely redesigned with new apparel that would appeal to a modern crowd, and he wasn't wrong, it worked. The stores were selling their clothes, people came to them, and liked what they had. And the company set about starting a really, really, really aggressive expansion plan. They'd exited bankruptcy in 2003 with a total of 170 stores. They'd opened their 500th by 2009 and their 1000th by 2013. Suddenly, Rue21 was popping up nationwide, just all over the place. And again, in their defense, it wasn't a bad idea to do this because they were making money at the time. The stores were doing well, they were selling clothes, people were coming to them, so they could afford to do this, but they weren't really future-proofing themselves. See, remember, this is the early 2000s, and internet commerce is on the rise. Rue21 didn't really get with the program on this for a while. In fact, they wouldn't have a decent online store in America until 2013. They only got away with this so long because they sold apparel. And even in the early 2000s, as online retail became more of a thing, not many people were comfortable buying clothes online necessarily, only because back then it was still very normal to want to try on clothes before you buy them. As a result, in that particular niche, people still preferred to go to brick-and-mortar locations, though that would start to change. In the meantime, not only did Rue keep building new stores, but they also expanded their major distribution center located in Weirton, West Virginia, doubling its size, which did help them in that way. They could get the products to the stores much more quickly and handle a larger amount of the products. However, as the 2010s wore on, they realized that they might have made a few minor mistakes. Mostly that, for one thing, Rue21 was cool for the early 2000s. They needed to update their image again. This is always the consistent issue with them, it seems. when it comes to their story. They always wait too long to actually update themselves, and then they get into a crisis and then they do it. But by that time, it's often too late. They've gotten lucky so far, but by April of 2017, they had to close down 400 locations, which they blamed on what's known as the retail apocalypse. The retail apocalypse is a term that refers to the closing of numerous brick-and-mortar retail stores in the United States, beginning during the 2010s, only amplified by COVID-19 restrictions. Basically, it was down to changing shopping habits. People weren't going to stores to buy stuff, and even if they were likely going to larger big box locations like Walmart and Target. This is because Walmart and Target had expanded their inventory quite a bit to include a lot of the things that these other brick-and-mortar locations had, but for greatly reduced prices. And Amazon's online shopping and Amazon Prime certainly didn't help. A lot of brands suffered under the retail apocalypse and continue to do so, though not everyone agrees that the retail apocalypse is a thing, saying that it's just a natural progression of the market. Because of the internet's existence, things change, and that's just a thing that happens. And there are chains out there, newer chains, that are expanding their number of stores, not shrinking. So, it's debated. But either way, Rue21 was not having a good time. People just weren't shopping with them like they once were, and they'd expanded so quickly that they had, well, a ton of overhead all of a sudden that they couldn't hope to sustain. They had assumed, wrongfully, that the money would just keep on flowing, that they could continue the aggressive growth. And if the money did keep flowing, they could have. But it didn't. On May 16, 2017, they had to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protections again. They didn't stay in bankruptcy for that long, emerging September 22nd of the same year after a reorganization plan was approved by the U.S. Bankruptcy Court for the Western District of Pennsylvania. By that point, the CEO was a woman named Melanie Cox, and she was confident that they could reorient the company and be totally fine. And for a while, it seemed like they might. Even throughout the pandemic, they still stayed afloat. They did not declare bankruptcy again during that period, and even expanded their offering to include plus sizes, because one of the complaints for Rue21 was that they had a size limit. They didn't have larger sizes, and there are larger people in this country. It's just a fact. So they started offering larger apparel, and that's not an unreasonable business decision. That's just more customers. But even after the COVID restrictions were lifted, Rue21 just didn't recover. While they did offer a lot more products, and some people did like them, it wasn't enough to keep them afloat. Because for many, by the 2020s, Rue21 was seen as kinda, just dated. It was no longer cool to that particular crowd. Rue21 is a name that screams early 2000s. It's the 2020s. Times are changing, old man. Get with the program. This is the reign of iPad kids, you fools! As a result, they had no choice but to declare bankruptcy for a third time on May 1st, 2024. They listed liabilities between $100 million and $500 million. And this time they plan to sell themselves off in hopes that under new ownership, well, maybe someone else can figure out this mess. As part of the plan, they closed all their remaining locations, 540 stores, and liquidation sales began on May 3rd, which were finished before the end of the month. And hey, liquidation sales, you know what that means? Discounted goods! Quick, it's a steal! Everything must go! Consumers love it, the companies don't. And after that point, with all the stores closed and the whole sale thing not really going well, it was actually reported and believed that Rue21 was gone for good. That they'd never reopen ever again, that they were just another dead brand. However, as of the making of this video, they may be getting a little bit of a bailout. On June 29th, 2024, YM Incorporated, who also own a few other clothing retail chains like Charlotte Russe and Urban Planet, acquired Rue21's assets. They immediately set about reopening 7 of the stores, and have slowly, very slowly, started reopening some of the Rue21 spots. As of right this second, they have about 100 or so. I couldn't find an exact count, but the point is, if you're watching this and saying, wait, I still have my Rue21 down the street. Yes, you do. That's because YM saved them. And perhaps because they already have experience managing other clothing retail chains, they'll be able to handle this. Because I'm sure in certain locations, people still prefer to go to this sort of outlet place, this specialty location. There's still a spot in the market for this. It's just not as large as it once was. And I think Rue21's biggest issue was their incapability of changing soon enough, as well as expanding way too quickly. They should have really slowed that down, but they never did. And they proceeded to grow completely out of control, to the point that when the money did slow down, they were like, oh no! We're gonna collapse now. Like, you should have prepared for that possibility, you know? Anyway, the website's still up, so if they sell the kind of clothes you want, you can still go to them or wherever you buy your clothes. I don't really buy clothes very often. I mean, I have clothes, but I don't like clothes shopping. It's not my thing. I wear black all the time. Like, I am not hard to please with the clothes. Is it a black long sleeve shirt and black pants? Great. Fantastic. I'll probably wear it. I myself have very specific but easy to fulfill needs. But most people are a bit more complicated. So hey, maybe you like Rue21. I don't know. But they're still here, at least for now. Till next time, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fun farewell.